Nick, if you would give us some insights, please, into your thoughts on social investment as a philanthropist and a trustee.
Yes. Well, I've got several hats on, but it started really, I set up my own foundation in 2010, and it had occurred to me for a long time that rather than merely investing those assets in straightforward stock market investments, regular investments, it would be useful if we could be doing something useful while it's sitting around waiting to be utilised, to be given away. And the opportunity came along. I was asked to join the investment committee of Impact Ventures UK, partly because I spent a lot of my time in the rest of my life investing in small businesses and startups. And I saw that as an opportunity, largely to see the pipeline of the kind of social investment opportunities that were there, because that would inform what I thought I could do with my own foundation's assets, and it's been a fascinating journey. But there's the one thing that I think I have realised is that one of the most powerful roles of social impact investing is investing in innovations to find better solutions to social problems, rather than merely giving more money to the same old solution. And so, a good example of that would be, it would be better to fund a company that finds a cheaper, better form of HIV diagnostic kit, rather than throwing more money at the same old solution that was there before. So to that end, in the capacity of my own foundation, I've just made my first significant social impact investment, which is in a tablet-based primary school education system for Africa, called iSchools. And that is an entirely commercial business, and and yet it has the potential to make an enormous impact within the system. And the one thing I've realised over the last few years, I started looking at the social impact sector, thinking that a social enterprise needs to be non-distributive. It needs to be an organisation that no one can get rich from. And my position has changed on that slightly. In now, actually, I'm much more agnostic as to whether or not the things that we're investing in are purely commercial or non-distributive or non-profit making, as long as what they end up with is a solution which creates a better, cheaper, more effective solution to solve social problems. And so that's one thing that's perhaps changed in my journey. Now, there are, of course, and the term social enterprise has lots and lots of definitions, but doesn't really have one that we all agree on. But I also, as an individual, and I suppose as an individual and as a benefactor of the foundation, we can afford to take a slightly more flexible approach to what we invest in and what we're happy with. What becomes much more difficult is when you're then having to satisfy, investing in a professional capacity, having to satisfy another audience, and therein comes the question of measurement, and impact measurement, the measurement of what you're doing, and how much one can afford to offset in terms of return, how much more extra risk you can afford to take for the impact. Now, as a private person, it's relatively straightforward. I just need to be happy with that equation. I need to look at, if we're looking at getting a slightly lower return, and we look at the end result of what we've invested in. If I look at the interest that has been foregone, and I'm happy with what has been created as a result of that, then that's fine. It doesn't quite wash when you have to explain that to if you're an institutional investor. And so the question of the measurement of impact is something that I was in fact absolutely fascinated by. One of the most important things I realised is that the most important thing in impact measurement is your intent. And if your intent is to measure things because you want to find out the truth, that's very, very different from measuring because you want to justify what you've done. And then the other aspect of impact measurement is the net impact of what you're doing, because so many organisations focus in on the measurement of what's going on with the organisation that they're funding. I'm going to say the example of the best example would be of a single academy school, when people are funding a single academy school and saying, look at the results I've managed to achieve in this school. But if they did that by sucking all the best teachers from neighbouring schools, and the results in the neighbourhood fell as a result, then there is no net benefit. So the two principles I think I look at for measurement are, one, are we measuring to find out whether this works or not? That's the most important thing. And secondly, are we actually looking at the net benefit overall in the system? And one of the things as a member of the investment committee of Ivy UK, we don't get paid for doing this. We sort of do it voluntarily, and the only carry that we have in these investments is the social carry. So if at the end of our 5-year term we found out that actually there was no net benefit to society, it would have been a bit of a waste of time. So it does slightly sort of keep the organisation honest in terms of making sure that we're focused on the social impact of what's happening, and that we're really convinced that it's a very, very genuine net benefit to society. So there's a few thoughts as we go on.